Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today we will be going through what's in my camera bag in 2025. The gear I use to create cinematic, professional looking videos without carrying an overwhelming amounts of gear. I will bring you along on a shoot in Greece for Mazda, where I will be going through all my equipments, including camera, light, lenses, drones, and a lot more, for you to find inspiration from and elevate your own productions with. With that said, let's get started. Over the years, through trial and error, I've learned what's worth bringing and what just takes up space in my camera bag without adding any value to my productions. First of all, let's start with the camera I'm using, my old and trusted friend, the Blackmagic 6K Pro. Some of you might argue that this camera is a bit outdated since the first version of this was released more than 5 years ago. But I have to date not found any camera in this price range and travelable size, which produces a comparable image quality and colors. Other pros with this camera is that it shoots 6K 50 FPS and has built-in ND filters. There are, however, some negatives with this camera as well, including no autofocus and no in-body stabilization, which transitions us nicely over to the next thing in my camera bag, the RS4 Pro gimbal. This helps me get those smooth shots even without any IBIS on the lens or the camera. And due to an overall heavy setup, I found the extra cost and capability of the Pro version to be worth it. I also use the extra focus motor when the camera is on the gimbal. This is because of the lack of autofocus on my camera, and therefore I had to find a way to be able to change focus mid-shots in another way, or otherwise I would be a bit restricted in the kinds of shots I could get. This gimbal also has a great function I use all the time, which is moving time-lapse function, where you can make the gimbal move slowly over time to achieve unique time lapses that stands out from the typical stationary ones. All this footage was filmed during my last production for Mazda in Greece, where we produced a mini documentary about a talented marble sculptor named Tom. During this production, I feel like I found the sweet spot of what gear I will bring on future travel productions of similar size. My main drone responsible for about 85% of the aerial shots is the Mavic 3 Pro. It delivers stunning image quality, is powerful enough to handle strong winds, and is also fast enough to keep up with fast-moving subjects, whether it's a car chase or another kind of action sequence. One of my favorite things with this drone is the capability of filming in 3 different focal lengths, allowing me to get even more unique and dynamic shots. For FPV style shots, I use the DJI Avatar. While it has limitations in flight range and image quality, the unique perspective an FPV drone can deliver is unbeatable, and also, flying is so much fun. But there might definitely be other options on the market that fits your needs better, whether it's higher speed or reliable for diving mountains or more agile. Building your own drones, from my experience, requires a lot of dedication and time. Time I personally have decided to prioritize on other sides of my filmmaking skills. And that brings us to the next equipment, which is my lenses. My main lens is the Sigma 18-35, which is the one I actually have on the camera at the moment. So it's a heavy lens, but the low aperture of 1.8 is incredible and creates that stunning depth of field that every filmmaker loves. It's also a great lens for low light situations. The 18-35 is also a great range of zoom, as it is an equivalent of 24-70 on a full frame camera. This lens normally covers up to 80% of the shots I need to get, and therefore makes it extremely handy, especially when using a gimbal, as I don't need to swap lenses and rebalance the gimbal very often. It gives me more time to focus on the shots instead of adjusting the gear. Secondly, I brought a Canon 100mm 2.8, which is a macro lens, and therefore it works specifically good during only a few different circumstances. For instance, when I need to get very detailed shots of things or people to complement a sequence. Finally, we have the Canon 70-200. It's a very bulky and sturdy lens, as you noticed, but the downside of the size is to balance it on a gimbal, as it's almost close to impossible, which results in limited situation that the lens actually can be used without the footage looking a bit too shaky. But meanwhile, the shots you can get with this one, when used right, is fantastic. For instance, when filming wildlife, and when I combined this lens with a 2x adapter, I just achieved some incredible shots. To not mention how cheap this solution is instead of getting another, for instance, 400mm lens. As you may have noticed, most of my gear isn't the latest in camera technology, but for me, it works perfectly. and delivers more than enough quality for high-end productions. I know it might seem like a bit of a paradox to make a what's in my camera bag video and then claim that gear isn't everything, but the point of this video is for you to find inspiration in the tools available and understand that filmmaking isn't just about having the newest equipment. It's about how you use what you have and in what situations what gear can open up new possibilities in shots. One of my latest investments and probably the upgrade that elevated my productions the most in the last year is lighting. And as a travel filmmaker, I always relied heavily on natural sunlight. But I quickly realized how limiting that can be, including unpredictable weather conditions, but also the harsh light that is common middle of the day, even for sunny conditions. A real problem, especially during bigger productions, where you don't have the luxury to wait for the weather to change. My current light setup includes the small rig RC60B, which is my secondary light. This light I mainly use to illuminate specific elements in the background of a frame or for situations where I need a portable light. A good example of that would be when I'm hiking or I can't bring my key light on a trip. My primary light is the one I'm using here, which is also from small rig, is a RC220B and allows me to shape the scene. For instance, in this moonline sequence, we created the entire scene's light from scratch purely with a key light. Here we placed the key light outside the window as it got darker, bringing this cinematic sequence to life. In this sequence, I also used another tool that can dramatically enhance your scenes and lighting, a smoke machine. Smoke interacts with light to add depth and texture, creating those juicy light rays every filmmaker loves. However, it's important to use it only when it makes sense. Otherwise, it's gonna feel out of place. In this case, the dust from the marble sculpting naturally blended with the artificial smoke. The next item in my bag is the magic arm. By attaching your camera to different objects, you can achieve unique perspectives that wouldn't be possible otherwise, whether it's mounting it on a pencil, a grinder, or even on a steering wheel. This little device helps you add some variation in your video. It's also the cheapest item in my kit, so it might be worth just trying it out and see if it fits your style of filmmaking. Next up is a probe lens from Lova. What truly makes this lens special is its long, slim design, which allows you to get ultra close to subjects while maintaining a wide field of view. In contrast from drone perspectives where you feel big and you see everything from above, this lens makes you feel small instead and everything around you big. It's also perfect for bringing out textures and details you wouldn't normally notice, and especially when going through objects, which I think personally adds something truly unique to the mix. The downside of this lens, however, is that it's extremely light sensitive. In comparison to the Sigma, which is 1.8 aperture, this one is a 14, which requires you to add a lot more light to the sequences when you're using this. Or if that's not an option, you have to crank up the ISO like crazy. And then next up, we have the suction cup. This kind of mount allows me to attach my phone to cars, windows, or other surfaces to get stable, dynamic shots without needing a full rig. The iPhone's camera quality is more than good enough for shorter sequences in my opinion, especially when used in a strategical way. If you've seen my video filmed in Tunisia from last year, you can kind of see that the iPhone actually is a pretty capable filmmaking tool. To improve audio quality, I always carry a portable attachable mini mic. This mic is perfect for interviews, ensuring clear and professional audio captured without it being too visible in frame. This is audio from the camera's internal microphone. And this is the audio from the Sennheiser microphone. Lastly, let's go through the filters I'm using on my camera. Firstly, I'm using a Promise filter, which adds a little bit of glow to the highlights, reduces skin imperfections, as well as just making the image a little bit more soft. And then secondly, I occasionally use a polarizer filter, and this one reduces reflections, glares, as well as haze, as well as adding a little bit of contrast and saturation to skies and oceans, for instance, something I'm personally a big fan of. Before we wrap up, I want to give one last shout out to Mazda Discovers and the final video we produced. This film embodies the craftsmanship spirit that I personally want to stand for, something that Mazda wants to celebrate and aim to highlight through the series. Thanks again for watching and sticking around till the end of the video. If you have any questions about gear or just questions in general, just drop them below and I will make sure to answer every single one of them. So see you guys in the comments and thanks again for watching. Peace out.